For almost 2 weeks, Kaelen Varys hadn't seen the sun, if one could call the vague, smog-choked gray-brown mass over Ethelberg's sun. At the Obsidian Docks, everything was steeped in the perpetual twilight of steel, grease, and decay. This wasn't where ships anchored. This was where secrets and forbidden magical cargo were moored. The air here was a disgusting blend of frigid sea salt, steaming rusted oil, and the heavy saturation of rain poison, blackened chemical drops falling from the colossal smokestacks of Upper Ethelberg's foundries. They wouldn't kill you instantly, but they corroded everything: metal, stone, and optimism. Kaelen Varys, 35, his face grim, mapped with psychological scars, checked his tool belt again. Every item had a fixed position. Every scratch on the protective leather was a horror story. He wore treated black sharkskin gloves dusted with silver powder, and a knotted cord of ancient bone was wrapped around his wrist. Kaelen did not believe in luck. He believed in necessary over-preparation. Beside him stood Lien, the rookie, 20 years old, quick, eyes shining with unconcealable nervousness. Lien was an open book to Kaelen, and that irritated him. In the world of cursed artifacts, transparency was a death sentence. "What are you looking at?" Kaelen snarled, without looking up. I was just trying to imagine what the Archimedes blood box looks like, Sir Varys," Lien stammered, gripping his enchanted sidearm tight. "Don't," Kaelen replied coldly. "Trying to imagine something you shouldn't understand only makes you think you can control it. And you can't." Kaelen hated taking this one on. For years, he had worked alone, trusting only his own shadow. But the Silent Pact, the esoteric scientific cult that secretly governed Ethelberg, was closing in. They didn't just want to catch Kaelen. They wanted to strip him down, dissect him, and use him as a relic locator. He needed an extra pair of eyes, someone quick enough to run and naive enough to serve as a distraction if needed. Lien met both criteria. Kaelen leaned against a massive metal container, once a cargo hoist, and began his brief lecture on Ethelberg, a city whose citizens walked in comfortable deceit. This city, Kaelen pointed toward the enormous steel structures half hidden in the toxic mist, is just a shell. The steel bridges, the black belching smokestacks, all of it is an effort to shield the decaying entity beneath. He paused, looking straight at Lien. Ethelberg was built on the ruins of a civilization that collapsed because it tried to grasp too much magic. They found infinite power, but they didn't find limits. The result was that they were swallowed by their own sorcery, shattered into overlapping dimensions, leaving rifts of reality scattered everywhere. The Silent Pact doesn't try to seal those rifts, they worship them. This history wasn't just ancient lore, it was Kaelen's personal memory. His parents, brilliant archaeologists, weren't accidental victims of a mine collapse, as the Silent Pact claimed. "My parents aren't dead," Kaelen said, his voice dropping, sharp as cold steel. "They were swallowed by that truth. They went too deep into the ancient sublevels beneath the city, searching for why the old civilization fell. They touched one of those rifts. The underground network we're about to enter. That's where they vanished." Thus, Kaelen wasn't just a relic looter. He was a seeker of truth. "You've heard my nickname, haven't you? The Relic." Kaelen gave a rare, self-mocking sneer. "People say I'm good at stealing relics. That's not true. I am the Relic." Kaelen clarified the nature of his work. It wasn't theft, it was chaos management. Most magical relics aren't treasures. They are physical, spiritual, and cosmic time bombs. If a cursed item falls into the hands of the Silent Pact, all of Ethelberg will be reduced to ash, just as it was millennia ago. I am the last remaining relic of a cursed family, a hidden gatekeeper, always one step ahead of the esoteric hunters. I pick up these dangerous items so they don't destroy the world, and I hand them over to fools willing to pay a high price for their safe, controlled destruction. The Archimedes blood box is the epitome of that chaos. The Archimedes blood box. The final target. The artifact the Silent Pact was desperate to keep hidden. It lay deep within one of their subterranean fortresses, where the air was even thicker than the toxic fog outside. "This job ends my career," Kaelen declared, turning, beginning to walk toward a massive, rusty steel hatch. "Or it ends my life. There is no other option." Kaelen activated an enchanted digital lock with a carved brass key. A chilling metallic shriek signaled the entrance opening. "Listen, Lien." Now is when I share the things that have kept me alive for the last 15 years. They are the rules of survival. They aren't advice. They are laws written in the blood of those who disregarded them. If you break any rule, I won't hesitate to kill you before the artifact does. Lien swallowed hard, listening intently. The first rule relates to what you just asked. Kaelen raised his hand, using his ring finger, which bore a protective signet, to tap the metal door. Rule 1. Always demand the item's true name. Not the nickname, not the colloquial term. The true name. Every client will try to call the item something cute and harmless. The trinket, the energy vessel, the foresight mirror. That's the trap. Magic is physical in nature. It's bound by nomenclature. Calling an item by the wrong name is the key to that magic finding and destroying you, by doing exactly what you believe it does. Kaelen closed his eyes, a painful memory flashing past, his breathing growing heavy. It was his first lesson, the one that nearly cost him his life at 20. Rule 2. Absolutely never take a job involving the souls of children. Never. Lien frowned, perhaps thinking Kaelen was referring to a common moral code. This isn't a moral issue, Lien. This is an issue of cosmic physics. Adult souls are negotiable, but children's souls always drag the enforcement down. Not the enforcement of God or the devil, but the enforcement of primordial entities, things that existed before this universe, executing cold, hard laws. Kaelen didn't elaborate. He only remembered Drax, the brutal thief who sought eternal power, and his horrific end. There are creatures he called the prairie monsters, who don't seek revenge, they merely execute the law. They trapped Drax forever in the single, most terrifying moment of his life. If you find an item that demands innocent sacrifice, you abandon it and burn everything around it. That is my only boundary. Never cross it. Rule 3. Believe every local superstition. Everything. Magic isn't abstract, Lien. It is the science of fear. If the Vikings believed scattering salt and using cold iron kept the Draugr away, that isn't folklore. That is a formula. Skepticism is the doorway to death, and faith in ancient warnings is your only armor. Never enter a cursed site without being fully prepared according to the local indigenous warnings. Kaelen pulled the zipper on his tool belt, revealing a small pouch filled with purified salt, a tin box of enchanted silver powder, and a few small, hand-carved bone fetishes. These had saved his life when he faced a Draugr in the Arctic, after his partner's arrogance had gotten them crushed. Rule 4. Always study the curses and warnings, even if they come from a loved one. This was the most expensive rule, and Kaelen had to use the life of Malachi, his teacher, mentor, and the only man he ever trusted, to write it. Malachi died because of my arrogance and his own. He thought his magical resistance was infinite. He touched the pin of destiny just to test it. That pin has the ability to record fear. And the result? Lien asked, not daring to breathe. It didn't kill him. It was much worse. It drained all of his memories, turning him into a dangerous spiritual void. Malachi forgot his wife, his children, and me. He ceased to be human. Kaelen reached up, covering the faint scar on his cheekbone. I was forced to personally terminate my mentor, Lien. That was the moment I became the relic. From then on, I trust no one, not even myself. If, in that vault, I start talking about beautiful memories, if I become arrogant, or if I act unlike myself, you have to leave me. Or end me. That is the oath. Kaelen turned to face Lien one last time before the vault door opened. No more concealment. This isn't my last job because I want to retire. The money I earn isn't for buying a farm. It's for building an isolated underground fortress where no supernatural entity can find me. And the Archimedes blood box? Lien asked. It's not a blood box. Its true name is the 7-dimensional emotional eraser. It can alter memories not just of a person, but of an entire area. I needed to wipe my identity from the Silent Pact's records. That is the key to escaping them. And your parents? Kaelen nodded, his eyes showing raw pain for the first time. The 7D eraser can create a rift large enough, a strong enough distortion of perception, to temporarily open the gate, imprisoning them. I will bring them back. Kaelen and Lien had reached the deepest sublevel of the Obsidian Docks. A cleverly disguised secret passage led into the ancient tunnel network beneath Ethelberg, straight toward the Silent Pact fortress. Kaelen grasped Lien's shoulder, his gaze tired but resolute. The Silent Pact are not foolish cultists. They are brutal spiritual scientists who want to use these artifacts to recreate the original cataclysm, believing destruction will lead to ultimate purification. He donned his antitoxin mask, activating a cold iron sigil on the massive stone door. My luck isn't survival, Lien. It is the ability to postpone death. I've taught you everything I know. If you survive, my legacy will continue. If we both die, the Silent Pact will pay for our final inconvenience. The stone door let out a horrible shriek, opening into a cold darkness, carrying the smell of ozone and iron. Kaelen Varys nodded, accepting his fate. The final job had begun. The shadows clung heavy to the Obsidian Docks. It was not the darkness of night, but the perpetual gloom of Ethelberg, a permanent layer of oily smog and brine that settled upon every surface. The stench of toxic rain stung the lungs, making the air heavy as lead. Kaelen Varys, 35 years old, known in the underworld simply as the Relic, tightened his snakeskin utility belt. The target isn't gold, Lien, Kaelen said, his voice low and raspy. He stared down at the young rookie shivering beside him. Lien, barely 20, had eyes too bright for this trade, filled with a foolish mix of naive excitement and stupid admiration. Kaelen hated the admiration. You said it's the Archimedes blood box. The key that frees us from the Silent Pact. Kaelen snorted, a sound like grinding rust. It is. The key. But before we try to unlock hell, you need to understand what this hell is built upon. Ethelberg, a labyrinth of steel and soot, was built on lies. The giant smokestacks were merely corks sealing the truth. A great civilization had collapsed through arrogance, attempting to harness magic as if it were a steam engine. His own parents had tried to excavate those ruins, and the truth had swallowed them whole. They call me the Relic because I'm good at stealing relics, Kaelen said, his eyes distant. They're wrong. I am the last relic of a cursed family, stuck between two dimensions. My job isn't thievery, it's chaos management. I am forced into hiding, always one step ahead of the Silent Pact. Kaelen pointed toward a massive steel door, half hidden beneath moss and grime-caked concrete. Behind that door lay the blood box. This job ends my career, he stated. Or it ends your life, and maybe mine. I'm going to share the rules of survival. They are not advice. They are laws written in blood. If you break one of them, I won't save you. I will kill you to save myself. Rule 1. Always demand the true name of the artifact. In our world, language is the most potent magic, Kaelen began. Lien nodded vigorously, trying to commit every detail to memory. My first lesson was with the soul-sucking crystal orb. The client, a tycoon named Lord Silas, wanted what he called an eternal energy vessel. Silas believed he could use it to power his exclusive district. He paid us a fortune. Kaelen and his team successfully breached a subterranean tomb in the fallen city of Babylon. The artifact, suspended within a magical lattice, was encased in a sparkling, jade-colored crystal shell. It looked perfectly harmless. Like an expensive toy, Kaelen recalled. When he removed the orb from its protective grid, everything was fine. But the moment they handed it over to Silas in his sealed steel vault in Geneva, the tragedy struck. Silas, impatient, activated the orb to test it. He never knew its true name was the siphon. It doesn't contain energy, Lien. It drains soul vitality, Kaelen hissed. The instant the siphon activated, a field of silvery gray power erupted. Silas screamed, not with physical pain, but the utter psychic horror of having his spirit drained. Within 3 seconds, Silas's flesh shriveled, dissolving into a heap of dust on the marble floor. His soul, stripped and compressed, exploded into a psychic frenzy that permeated the room. Kaelen, standing near the door, had to activate every ward and charm he possessed: cold iron, silver powder, and an ancient incantation Malachi had taught him. He escaped, carrying the siphon and a lifetime's worth of dread. Calling an artifact by the wrong name allows that magic to find you, because it won't react as you anticipate, Kaelen concluded. It will react according to its true nature. The Archimedes blood box? That's the wrong name. We will discuss the true name later. Rule 2. Never take jobs involving the souls of children. This was the only ethical limit Kaelen enforced upon himself. and it was a line drawn deep in the recurring nightmares of Drax. There are artifacts that lie dormant, waiting to be activated. And there are artifacts that, once touched, automatically summon the cosmic enforcers, Kaelen warned. Years ago, he partnered with Drax, a legendary arcane thief known for his brutality and perfect calculation. Drax had located an ancient shrine buried deep beneath the Black Continent, a place where primal magic still breathed. That shrine was a source of infinite power, according to Drax, but it required sacrifice to unlock. Drax had used a group of local children, lured by promises, as offerings. Kaelen tried to intervene, but Drax merely mocked him as soft. Kaelen retreated, but he wasn't fast enough to escape the consequences. Souls are not resources to be mined, Lien. They are the substrate of reality itself, Kaelen whispered. Immediately after Drax completed the ritual, the ground began to crack. Creatures known as the prairie monsters ascended. They were not demons, nor common beasts. They were colossal humanoids, over 3 meters tall, their bodies seemingly forged from iron ore, yet the blood running through them glittered like molten copper. Their hands glowed red, not with fire, but with the temperature of cosmic reckoning. They weren't there for revenge. They were there to enforce a merciless law, Kaelen explained. Child souls, due to their purity, are direct conduits to the oldest entities. When Drax harmed them, he violated a cosmic contract deeper than any cult. The prairie monsters did not kill Drax. They didn't need to. They seized his soul, stretched it like an elastic cord, and bound it permanently to the shrine. Drax was forced to relive the horrific moment of the sacrifice, in an endless loop, while his physical body turned to stone. Kaelen survived thanks to his bone talisman and the fact that he had not directly participated in the murder. He carried the deep psychological scar and the undeniable truth. There are things worse than death, and child souls always draw the retribution of incomprehensible entities. Rule 3. Believe all local superstitions. The Silent Pact and Ethelbert believe magic is pure science. They are wrong. Magic is the science of fear, Kaelen stated. If the villagers believe Draugr hates salt and cold iron, that makes it true. Those beliefs create a layer of psychic protection spanning centuries. A few years prior, Kaelen and another team infiltrated a frozen Viking burial site in the Arctic to retrieve an ancient brooch. His teammates, arrogant academics from a London institute, mocked the local Inuit warnings about using cold iron and scattering sea salt. They were ambushed by a Draugr, a powerful Norse undead, nearly impervious to conventional weapons. Its strength came not from common sorcery, but from the solidified fury of a forgotten warrior. My team used energy guns and blades forged from carbon steel. All useless. The Draugr just absorbed the energy and grew stronger. Kaelen recalled the carnage. When everyone else had fallen, Kaelen was backed into a corner. He remembered an old tale Malachi had told. The Draugr feared pure materials, those untouched by magical forging. Kaelen pulled out the carved bone talisman Malachi had given him, a piece of whale bone etched with protective sigils, and, in a desperate move, used the rough, wrought iron kitchen knife he carried to slash deep into the Draugr's shoulder. Cold iron. Iron that has never been heated in a magical forge, Kaelen explained. The wound didn't kill it, but it triggered a violent reaction. Black smoke billowed from the cut. Kaelen threw a handful of sea salt into the smoke. The Draugr screamed, its power disintegrating. Kaelen had just enough time to flee. Skepticism is the gateway to death, Lien. Belief in ancient warnings is the only armor. In this vault, do not scorn any talisman. Rule 4. Always investigate curses and warnings, even if they come from a loved one. This lesson cemented Kaelen as the relic. It was the most costly lesson, and it involved Malachi, his mentor, his advisor, and the only man he ever truly trusted. Malachi was the greatest. His natural spell resistance was so powerful he could walk through an energy field. But that very arrogance killed him, Kaelen said, his voice almost cracking. Malachi located the Fate Needle in a sealed psychic laboratory in Siberia. This needle didn't kill people by drawing blood, but by recording fears and draining memories. Malachi believed that, due to his resistance, he could touch the needle to gauge its power threshold without consequence. He was wrong. It only took a light touch, Kaelen recounted. The fate needle caused no pain. It simply siphoned every single memory Malachi possessed within minutes. Malachi was still alive, his body intact, but his mind was utterly blank. He forgot his wife, his children, his achievements, and even Kaelen. Worse, the needle had transformed Malachi into a dangerous psychic vessel. His functioning body was no longer bound by logic or affection. He began emitting chaotic energy fields, threatening to dismantle everything around them. Kaelen was forced to end Malachi's life personally, killing my own teacher, the man who taught me everything. It was the only way to avert disaster, Kaelen admitted, his eyes burning with permanent grief. The lesson: never be arrogant, especially with those you love. If magic can strip the soul of the strongest man, it can do the same to me. Kaelen turned back to Lien, the sharp intensity returning to his gaze. Now we talk about the Archimedes Blood Box. Its true name is the 7D Emotive Eradicator. Kaelen explained that the Emotive Eradicator was more than just an ancient device. It was a reality-altering machine designed to manipulate memory on a massive scale, overriding linear space and time. This is the key to my escape from the Silent Pact. I won't be buying a conventional farm. The money I earn will build an isolated subterranean fortress, a place where even the memory of me cannot exist. Kaelen lowered his voice, revealing the greater motivation, something he had never shared with anyone other than Malachi. My parents aren't dead, Lien. They're trapped. The ancient curse locked them in another dimension, right beneath this very Ethelberg. He believed that if he activated the Emotive Eradicator, it wouldn't just erase his identity from the Silent Pact's files. It could create a fracture large enough in the veil of reality to pull his parents back. The Silent Pact aren't foolish cultists. They are brutal psychic scientists who believe destruction leads to ultimate purification. They found a way to recreate the cataclysm of the old world, and the 7D Emotive Eradicator is their perfect tool. They had descended to the lowest level of the Obsidian Docks. The air was thick and humid, carrying the breath of magical energy and decay. The secret passage led into an ancient network of tunnels, heading straight toward the Silent Pact's inner fortress. Kaelen gripped Lien's shoulder, his expression grave. Recap, Kaelen ordered. 1. True name: the 7D Emotive Eradicator. Never call it the Blood Box. 2. Souls. If the Silent Pact is using any innocent souls to power the device, we stop, even if it means failure. 3. Materials. Your silver powder, cold iron, and bone talisman must be ready at all times. 4. Arrogance. If I start talking about fond memories, if I become arrogant about my resistance, or if I start begging for forgiveness, you must leave me. Or kill me. Lien swallowed hard. Are you really serious about that? Malachi's lesson, Lien. Affection can cloud reason. You are my last failsafe. Kaelen donned his respirator, activating a cold iron sigil carved onto the massive stone portal. The door shrieked as it slowly ground open. My luck isn't survival. It's the ability to postpone death, Kaelen said, looking back at Lien one last time. I have taught you everything I know. If you survive, my legacy continues. If we both die, the Silent Pact will pay for their final inconvenience. He nodded and stepped into the chilled darkness, embracing his fate among the entities and history waiting to consume him. The final job had begun. Kaelen quietly tapped his utility belt, where a cold iron dagger and a glass vial of silvered salt rested. Lien observed these items with skepticism, as if they were the antics of a charlatan. You've looked enough, Lien, Kaelen said, his voice dry. Rule 3. Believe every local superstition. You laugh? You think these are peasant fairy tales? No. Magic is not an abstract force. It is the science of fear. It is the defense mechanism humanity has developed over millennia to deal with entities the brain cannot process. If a Viking believes that sprinkling salt and using cold iron can fend off a draugr, then that is a law of physics written in blood. He recalled a freezing night, deep within the Arctic Circle, where the northern lights danced over snow-covered mountains. The mission was to retrieve the brooch of fate from an ancient Viking chieftain's barrow. Kaelen led a small team of 3, including Thane, an arrogant academic sorcerer who trusted only printed formulas and sigils, and Alara, an expert in magical physics who always sought the logic behind every curse. They found the frozen barrow, the interior protected by chilling rune enchantments. Kaelen had gathered every oral tradition from the local fishermen, from never speaking the dead man's name aloud, to leaving a silver coin on the threshold. Thane and Alara dismissed it all. Nonsense, Kaelen. Thane snapped, struggling to use a third-level protective spell inscribed on sheepskin to disable a stone door. We have arithmetic. These are remnants of ignorance. That arrogance became their executioner. When they took the brooch, it wasn't a magical trap that triggered, but the sheer offense to belief that awakened the entity. The Draugr appeared. It wasn't a sluggish zombie. It was a hardened mass of muscle and bone covered in a layer of black, glossy ice, its eyes glowing with the faint, rotten green light of 1,000 years of decay. Thane shot a powerful blast of arcane fire, but the Draugr stepped through the flames as if they were steam. Alara launched a powerful electrical pulse. The Draugr merely smirked, the electrical energy seemingly absorbed by the undead body, making it stronger. It's shielded from pure energy. Alara screamed, her voice cracking in pure terror. The Draugr swung its rusted axe, and Thane instantly dissolved into a red mist. Kaelen was left alone, hearing Alara being slammed against the stone wall by the creature. He touched the bone amulet Malachi had given him, a piece of carved animal bone soaked in dried blood and herbal dust, inscribed with a symbol of mundane good fortune, something Malachi always scorned, yet still gave Kaelen. He remembered the mute old man's tale. Draugr feared cold iron and salt. Cold iron was metal forged without the heat of fire. It carried a negative energy, the inverse of magical energy. Kaelen drew the cold iron dagger, feeling the biting chill through his glove. He threw the vial of silvered salt powder into the Draugr's face. The silvered salt didn't kill it, but it melted the black ice covering the Draugr, bringing it to a momentary halt in searing pain. In the instant the Draugr turned away, temporarily blinded, Kaelen didn't aim for the heart or the head. He plunged the cold iron dagger directly into the cartilage of its wrist. There was no scream, no magical retaliation, only the silence of a physical death. The Draugr collapsed, crumbling into dust and fragments of ice. Kaelen crawled out of that tomb, his body shaking not from the cold, but from understanding. Skepticism was the gateway to death. Trusting ancient warnings was the only armor. The very things the spiritual academia despised, salt, silver, cold iron, were the only weapons effective against a dead entity. But this rule 4, Kaelen continued, locking eyes with Lien, his gaze darkening, is what rewrote my destiny. It is the costliest lesson. Always study the curse and the warning, even if it comes from a loved one. Especially when it comes from a loved one. Kaelen took a deep breath. The smell of oil and sewage from the Obsidian Docks seemed insufficient to mask the stench of blood and decay in his memory. Malachi, his teacher, his mentor, and the only person Kaelen had ever trusted unconditionally after his parents' deaths. Malachi didn't just teach him how to survive the world of relics. He taught him how to think like an arcane hunter. Malachi had a weathered appearance, with a salt and pepper beard and eyes that always burned with unquenchable curiosity. He always said, "My boy, magic is just sharp teeth. If you don't respect them, they will bite you dead." But Malachi also had a fatal flaw, arrogance based on experience. A few years prior, they discovered a sealed psychic laboratory in a forgotten city beneath the Gobi Desert. In the center of that lab, resting on a cushion of black silk, was their objective, the Fate Needle. It was no ordinary needle, but an intricately carved bone instrument capable of recording pure fear. Ancient scientists had used it to store collective nightmares, condensing them into concentrated energy. Kaelen had found a warning carved into the wall just before the entrance. Whoever touches this point without absolute spiritual armor shall be drained not of life, but of existence. He shall become a vessel of oblivion. Overdramatic warning, Malachi scoffed, dismissing the warning as a cheap trick. Malachi possessed a powerful sequence of protective spells, which he proudly believed were impenetrable by any psychic magic. He was confident he could touch the needle, analyze its vibration, and withdraw unscathed. Kaelen pleaded with him to stop, but Malachi was too arrogant. He placed his fingertip on the needle's point. The consequence was not an explosion, but a terrifying silence. The fate needle's energy didn't attack Malachi with force, it drained him with emptiness. The memory of his wife, the years spent mentoring Kaelen, the very knowledge of his own name, all were sucked dry in a single second. Malachi no longer felt pain, but he no longer knew who he was. He turned back toward Kaelen, his once sharp eyes now blank, soulless. Malachi whispered a string of meaningless numbers and names, not recognizing Kaelen, not recognizing the danger around him. He had transformed into a dangerous psychic material. His body remained, but he had become a hole in reality, a source of chaotic energy ready to swallow everything. He was the trap that remained after the mind had been obliterated. Kaelen had to finish his teacher himself. It was the most painful moment of his life. Kaelen had to use an ancient sigil that only Malachi and he knew how to forge, a sigil capable of breaking the link between matter and psychic energy. He did not kill Malachi. He liberated him from that mutating body, forcing Malachi to dissipate like a wisp of smoke. The lesson from that death was etched into Kaelen's mind. Never trust your own defenses. If you start talking about pleasant memories, if you feel arrogant, or if you begin to challenge the warnings, you are already compromised, and it is time to retreat or be destroyed. From that moment, Kaelen concluded, his voice barely a whisper, I became the relic. Not because I steal relics, but because I am the last relic left behind of a family and a life erased by arrogance and magic. Lien's silence was heavier than the acidic mist clinging to the docks. He had nothing left to say. His initial fear, the dread of being caught stealing coins, had been replaced by the paralyzing terror of interfering with cosmological mathematics. He wasn't just risking his life, he was risking his entire existence, his very notion of reality. Kaelen didn't wait for an answer. He saw the grim, pale acceptance in the boy's eyes, the look of a man who had seen the abyss and realized the fall was inevitable. Good, Kaelen said, his voice flat. Then you know what's at stake. We move now. The window is tight. He tapped the digital schematics on his gauntlet again. The red dot, the blood box, was nestled deep within the Silent Pact's subterranean fortress of reformation. Their entry point wasn't a front gate or a high-rise window, but a forgotten sewage line dating back to the Old Empire, sealed for 2 centuries. The Pact's primary defense is psychological, not physical. They rely on the sheer scale of the building's psychic imprint, a kind of spiritual noise pollution, to deter intruders. But they also have physical guards, automated sentries, and, worst of all, scrubbers. Kaelen slid a long, obsidian-bladed knife into a sheath at his lower back. Scrubbers are re-engineered Draugr, soldiers who failed their purity tests. The Pact uses surgical procedures and localized psychic resonance to turn them into living anti-magic minds. They don't just attack you. Their presence disrupts your focus, making spellcasting erratic and technology unreliable. How do we beat them? Lien whispered, his throat tight. We don't. We avoid them. Kaelen corrected sternly. My map shows their patrol routes. They move predictably. We have 82 minutes from the moment we enter the main ventilation shaft until the morning shift change. That window closes when the overseer of psychological maintenance, a woman named Sister Tamsin, runs her daily diagnostics. Kaelen handed Lien a heavy, cylindrical object wrapped in worn leather. This is a pulse jammer, shielded against psychic feedback. It will scramble any automated locks for 20 seconds. Max, use it only when I tell you. If we get separated, find the main power conduit. It runs like a spine beneath the phalanx. And wait for my signal. Don't engage. Don't look at their priests. Don't breathe the air unless absolutely necessary. Lien nodded, the weight of the jammer feeling monumental in his palm. It was his only tool, his only purpose beyond distraction. They moved away from the docks, leaving the smell of brine and desperation behind, entering the narrow, decaying back alleys of the lower city. Kaelen moved with the silence of a collapsing shadow, utilizing every sliver of darkness and every rustling breeze as cover. Lien tried to match his pace, his focus entirely on the metallic click of Kaelen's armored boots against the broken pavement. The access point was concealed behind a rusted, discarded power substation, a massive, humming cube of defunct technology that still emitted a faint, oily electric scent. Kaelen knelt, pulling a multi-tool from his belt, a relic of pre-collapse technology, humming with contained kinetic energy. He quickly carved an aperture through the fused metal plating. The process was silent, precise, and utterly ruthless. Behind the plate was a sheer drop into the blackness of the sewer access shaft. "Listen to me, Lien," Kaelen said, turning, his voice low and urgent, the kind of urgency that promised violence. "Once we go down, there is no up. The air down there is charged with the residual agony of 1,000 years. It messes with the mind. You will see things that aren't real. You will feel despair that isn't yours. You will hear the voices of the civilization that died trying to achieve transcendence." He gripped Lien's shoulder, his fingers digging in like talons. "Those voices? They are the lures. They are the psychic dampeners. Ignore them. Your world is this knife, this pulse jammer, and my voice. Nothing else exists until we are back out." Kaelen tightened his grip, pulling Lien close until their helmets almost touched. "I need that dimensional chaos. I need to shatter their reality for just 1 minute so I can reclaim my parents. If they catch you before that minute, they will not just steal your memories or your life. They will steal your soul, repurpose it, and file it away as data point for O2B. Do you understand? Your existence will become a spreadsheet entry for their evil mathematicians." Lien felt a tremor run through him, not of fear, but of profound, terrible commitment. "I understand." "Good." Kaelen released him and attached a reinforced rappelling cable to the shaft's edge. "This is where we leave Kaelen Varys and Lien the errand boy behind. Down there, we are shadows executing the impossible." He looked up toward the horizon, visible between the jagged towers of Ethelberg. The sky was beginning to pale from sickly yellow to a bruised, sulphurous orange. The city, normally shrouded in eternal industrial gloom, was preparing for the dawn. "The sun is rising, Lien," Kaelen stated, his face a mask of weary purpose under the visor. "Ethelberg wakes up, and so do the Pack's worst nightmares. We'll be halfway to hell before the first ray of light hits the phalanx walls." With that, Kaelen slipped into the gaping black hole, descending silently. Lien took a deep breath of the polluted, acidic air, the last breath of his old life, and followed him down into the subterranean darkness. They had arrived. There was no more sound of poisonous rain, no smell of machine oil and brine. Only the scent of cosmic decay remained. In the deepest basement of the Obsidian Docks, a colossal stone wall was carefully shielded by rusty steel plates and industrial chains. Kaelen used a small plasma cutter, creating a piercing shriek as he severed the final bolt. When the steel shield crashed onto the stone floor, it revealed a monolithic door, twice the height of a man, etched with geometric characters that were not human language, but geometries that created spiritual distortion. This passage did not lead to the conventional sewer network. It plunged straight into the belly of Ethelberg, where the ruins of the ancient civilization were preserved as a morbid monument. The air was frigid, unnaturally dry, and carried an electrostatic tension, as if the space was compressed by an invisible force. Lien, though mentally prepared, struggled to control his breathing. He felt as though he was inhaling the dust of shattered dreams and pure dread. "This is where the Silent Pact built their church," Kaelen said, his voice deep and dry. "They don't worship devils. They worship orderly collapse. They believe that only total destruction can bring the purification that the old civilization tried to achieve through magic." Kaelen knelt, touching the stone floor with his finger. He picked up a pinch of fine, silvery white powder, plaster and crushed silver, used to slow down non-physical entities. They tried to seal the energy here, but they only made it angrier. He stood up, looking directly at Lien. "Listen, Lien, I've taught you everything I know about surviving. Now is the time I teach you how to die. Or worse, how to let me die." Kaelen pulled Lien into the deepest corner, where the shattered fragments of an ancient stone statue offered a thin layer of protection from the energy seeping from the door. 4 rules. You must keep them in mind. But down here, they will be applied simultaneously and in an entirely new way. He started with Rule 1, his eyes sharp as razors. Always demand the true name of the artifact. We are not going for the Archimedes blood box. Kaelen emphasized every word. Its true name is the 7D emotive eraser. Lien frowned. Emotive eraser? Not memory. Memory is data. Emotion is the anchor. The old civilization didn't collapse because they lost their minds, but because they couldn't cope with the sheer horror of what they saw. The 7D emotive eraser doesn't erase memories of the disaster. It erases the capacity to feel that horror across 7 dimensions. If we activate it incorrectly, we won't forget who we are, but we will completely lose the ability to feel, becoming hollow shells controlled by things that should not be named. You must call it by its proper name. If it starts talking to you, call that name. The 7D emotive eraser. It hates its true name. Kaelen transitioned to Rule 2, his voice sinking to nearly a vowel. Absolutely refuse any job involving the souls of children. The Silent Pact are hypocrites. They don't use children's souls for routine rituals, but they might use them as bait. If you see an image, a cry, an illusion of innocence, that is the most sophisticated trap. The prairie monster or similar entities don't even need to appear. The mere act of thinking about sacrificing an innocent soul is enough to trigger the retribution. Do not touch anything that seems like new life. Only this ancient decay is safe. He swiftly touched the tool belt, where Lien wore a finely carved bone amulet and a small pouch of coarse salt. Rule 3. Believe every local superstition. In these corridors, there is no logic, only primordial fear. I have prepared silver powder mixed with rhino horn dust. It will disorient any entity trying to manipulate our emotions. Your cold iron will block psychic radiation. The coarse salt on this door is not just for protection, it is to define boundaries. If an entity crosses the line, throw the salt. It will strip away their deception. Finally came Rule 4, the most crucial rule, the one written in Malachi's blood. Kaelen gripped Lien's shoulders, his gaze stripped of the usual cynicism, replaced by a true, raw agony. This is the most critical clause, Lien. The lesson of Malachi. Arrogance. Our greatest arrogance is the belief in the power of memory. If the Blood Box or any other Silent Pact device begins to function, they will attack the things dearest to us, the things we think we have protected. They will use my isolation, your loss, and the most beautiful things we've ever known. Kaelen took a deep breath. If I start talking about beautiful memories, if I become overly emotional, if I boast about how successful we've been, if I declare that all this fear is meaningless, that is not me. That is me being corrupted. He pressed a cold iron dagger into Lien's hand, the hilt wrapped in shark skin. If that happens, you must leave me behind. Or better yet, you must end me. Lien trembled. Kaelen, I. You must become that cold blade. Malachi became a spiritual residue, a soulless corpse haunted by the fear he never acknowledged. I will not become a living relic. I am already the relic enough. Kaelen placed a hand on Lien's head, like a final blessing and an undeniable burden. Promise me, Lien, if you see me turning back, if I start talking about how love saved me or anything else I never believed, use this blade. It is the only way to save me from an existence worse than death. Lien swallowed hard. He felt the weight of the dagger and the weight of the promise. I understand. It will be a quick death, Kaelen. Kaelen nodded, determination returning to his gaze. Good. Now for the motive. The money is not for buying a farm. It's for building an isolated underground fortress. A place that entities and cults cannot find. And the Blood Box. He stared deeply at the stone wall. My goal is not theft, Lien. My goal is to create a rift big enough. My parents aren't dead, they are trapped. They are imprisoned in another dimension, right beneath this Ethelberg, by the very curse they were trying to study. The Archimedes Blood Box, the 7D emotive eraser, is a tool so powerful it can tear the veil separating realities. If I calibrate it correctly, instead of erasing emotion, it will create a multidimensional oscillation strong enough to pull them back. This is why I need my identity erased. If I succeed, the Silent Pact will hunt me and my parents to the ends of the cosmos. I need to vanish completely from all records, all memories of the occult hunters. My luck is not survival, Lien. It is the ability to delay death. I have delayed it long enough to teach you and long enough for this chance. If I die here, the Silent Pact will pay for their final inconvenience. If you survive, you must carry the memory of these rules. That will be the only legacy I leave behind. Kaelen tightened his utility belt, checking the filter on the gas mask. He slipped the mask on, His cynical face now transformed into a cold metal box, only his eyes reflecting grim resolve. Kaelen walked toward the colossal stone door. He took out a cold iron badge, shaped like a severed Ouroboros snake, and placed it into a deep groove on the door. The cold iron touched the ancient stone, and the electrostatic energy in the air surged. A terrifying shriek erupted, not of grating metal, but of the stone groaning under magical pressure. The ancient symbols on the door began to glow a vibrant blue, then shifted to blood red. The stone door, weighing tons, slowly shifted, revealing a corridor plunging into the abyss. Inside, the darkness was not the absence of light. It was a material entity, a thick, frigid mist that carried the voiceless whispers of thousands of imprisoned souls. Kaelen turned back to look at Lien one last time, nodding, a simple action imbued with absolute trust and acceptance of fate. Let's go, recruit. The final job has begun. He stepped into the darkness. As soon as Kaelen disappeared, Lien put on his own mask, clutching the dagger tightly in his hand. He inhaled, swallowing the rising fear. He recalled the image of Malachi and the vow he had just made. Lien followed, the darkness immediately consuming him, and the heavy stone door slammed shut behind them with a resounding boom that echoed like thunder in the earth's core. Now, only the 7D emotive eraser, the silent pact, and the entities waiting to devour history remained.